So at the first sleep study more than 10 years ago, I skipped one night of medications. And in that report that he wrote, I never saw the report until recently. More than 10 years later, I saw the report. In that report, he said, oh, she's no longer taking the medications. That wasn't true. All I did was skip one night, right? I mean, this is critical for doctors to be guiding you through those sleep studies. To this day, here's $1 million question. Here's a question of your health. Here's a potentially even a life or death question. Should a sleep doctor, if I was going for a sleep study tonight, and if I called the doctor and said, should I take my sleep medications tonight at the sleep study? Should I take the sleeping pills? I still don't know the answer to that. What would they advise you? If they advised me yes, and those medications, a few sleeping pills, are causing my sleep apnea, and then I will go to that sleep study and be diagnosed with sleep apnea. And now what? Now I'm on sleep apnea for years, or now I'm on CPAP treatment for years? Or would they advise you to? I'd like to call one of them, but none of them want to talk to me because of this issue. I'd like to call one of them tomorrow and say, if I was going for a sleep study tonight, would you advise me to take my sleep medications? I'm not on any medications, but they had me on, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 sleeping pills a night. So are they inducing sleep apnea in people? And then now this is a serious health issue, sleep apnea. It can lessen your life by 10 or 20 years. Shorten your lifespan. It can all, I just don't, I haven't had the guts, and I don't want my family doctor to think that I'm trying to stir up trouble, but I would love to call one of these guys and say, okay, if I was to have a sleep study tonight, would you recommend that I take my medications or not? Because that's $1 million question. So the next sleep study, years later, I'd weaned off one of the medications. I'm an acute withdrawal. But no, you know what? Okay, I had that first sleep study, and I was sleeping 3 hours a night for years. My sleep apnea, my insomnia escalated to 1 or 2 hours a night. I was sleeping only 1 or 2 hours a night. Living here, my life is gone. I would sleep 1 hour, and I'm in absolute crisis. No napping. I'm fighting for my life here, and there's no answers from anybody. Nobody knows what's wrong with me. I'm left to fight for my life. No medical, and then I decided to wean off the sleep medications. And then, but I'd been telling 2 doctors for years, I get into bed, my body doesn't want to breathe anymore. I didn't know the medications could be doing that to me. I knew nothing about these medications. Now I know so much. But so 15 years ago, 12, 13 years ago, I'm sleeping 3 hours a night for years. I do the sleep study. I didn't take the medication, and they go, "Oh, you're fine. You slept 5 hours." I should check how many minutes I actually slept at the test, because I now have a copy, but it's a very vague, very not much information at all. He says I slept 5 hours. I don't know if that's true. I was sleeping 3 hours at that time. And then my sleep got worse and worse to the point I'm sleeping only 1 or 2 hours a night. And then a year later, I go into acute withdrawal, and I'm still sleeping only 1 or 2 hours a night for 4.5 years. I go for a sleep study, severe sleep apnea, and I'm fighting to breathe. I believe I was in respiratory failure. I absolutely believe I was in respiratory failure. I went home with that CPAP. I propped myself again in the corner in the bedroom in the dark, and I'm wearing the mask, sitting upright, and I'm stopping breathing over and over. I'm awake and I'm stopping breathing. I fought and fought to survive. I've had 2 sleep studies since, and it's all a blur. I have copies of them. And now, I was on CPAP for 7 years, and I stopped the CPAP a month ago because I just can't stand the pain anymore. CPAP causes me so many health issues, and my breathing was so bad the other night, like my body didn't want to breathe. And here's what people don't know about CPAP. CPAP doesn't just stop your apnea while you're asleep, but CPAP, these PAP machines, whether it's BiPAP or SleepApp or whatever, they can assist your breathing. So I was so terrified the other night. My body didn't want to breathe. Awake, I'm laying in bed for an hour. I'm out of breath. I'm not doing anything. I'm just laying there. I can't catch my breath. So I slept with the CPAP on, and I thought, I wonder. Now I haven't worn CPAP for a month. I wonder how bad the apnea is. Only a couple apneas, almost non-existent. So I went from severe sleep apnea to mild, and I wonder, and that's not saying that as time goes on, my apnea could get worse and worse without the CPAP, because it could, but it might not. I'm having difficulties breathing. I'm having airway issues. My jaw moves back too much. I need a device for my jaw. But I'm wondering if all those years, I was put on sleep medications as a teenager. I'm wondering if all those years, those drugs have caused me sleep apnea for decades. Drug-induced sleep apnea. And the terrible suffering I went through, and the decades of sleepwalking and sleep eating from those medications. Decades of sleepwalking that was escalating and getting worse through the years. And as my insomnia got worse, they would raise the medications, which would worsen the sleepwalking. But I didn't see the connection. I didn't know. Excuse this. This really helps my sinus pain. There's cotton in here, and it's wet, and it humidifies my aching sinuses. I just started antibiotics. So tonight, I'm really wondering if hellish apnea was caused for decades from those medications. And if that's the case, obviously nothing can be done. In my case, it's done with. decades of suffering and sleep apnea and you know, and respiratory depression. When you have, okay, you can have respiratory depression for different reasons, from being very ill, from a brain condition like Chiari malformation, from too many medications. Respiratory depression is when your body doesn't want to breathe, but it's got nothing to do with your lungs. It's coming from your brain. So a doctor could have you on benzos and opioids, or benzos, gabapentin, Z drug. I mean, they had me on everything, all the same time, oftentimes. So absolutely, I had respiratory depression for years. Nobody would diagnose that. Nobody would diagnose. And I know now, from my level of understanding and education now, in retrospect, I know there's no way that my former doctor didn't know that I was suffering from respiratory depression, like fighting to breathe in bed for years because of what they were prescribing me. I know that. I know this now. I can show this. I can show my pharmacy records to any doctor, and they will agree with me. So my breathing is getting stronger. And I know now, time has passed. Time will tell, right? I know now that the medications were making me sick, really sick in many ways. I'm still, severely sleep deprived. I think I have jaw issues, airway issues. The insomnia, is that coming from the Chiari? It absolutely can be. Insomnia is a huge symptom of Chiari. But a lot of the suffering was caused by prescribing, like serious sleep, just respiratory depression, sleep apnea. They never did diagnose this. I did. I saw it from a oral dentist on TikTok and Facebook, and determined my jaw is moving back too much and my airway is small. I requested, can you send me to someone so I can have this looked at? This was a couple of years ago. They did a CT scan of the throat. I never saw the results. I was told that it was fine. I saw the results a couple of years later that it says I have a narrow nasopharynx. So, the airway, your airway, right? So I wonder how many people are being prescribed into sleep apnea, and they're suffering, and their life is slipping away from them because of undiagnosed sleep apnea, undiagnosed respiratory depression, sleep-induced, drug-induced sleepwalking, drug-induced sleep eating, drug-induced insomnia. I'm now years off the medications. It'll be, I don't know, in the summer, I think it'll be 6 years off all sleep medications. 8 years off the second last sleep medication. Gotta wonder. And how many people are being made sick by these sleep medications, but having their sleep ruined by it, and they don't know. And like, how much of mine is Chiari, and how much was the medications.